Well, Happy New Year. Kul sana wa anta tayyib, which is in Arabic means, well, may it be a good year for you. I hope it will be, but it hasn't started out very well with the assassination of General Soleimani and the consequences thereof. Some in the Iraq government, not all, by no means all, indeed it was a very selective few, but some knew on the day of General Soleimani and al-Mohandis's death that the U.S. planned this strike, or at least they knew that a strike would take place on that day in or near Baghdad. It's even possible that they knew or could have deduced that General Soleimani was the main target. I'm not sure. But this despite the fact that General Soleimani was a good friend of many of them. And we have been told privately that Iraq plans to retaliate against the United States independently from Iran, because many senior Iraq figures regard this as a direct attack on them. It's interesting, it's difficult, it's disturbing, and it's dramatic. You could say, actually, that the attack by Iraq on the United States has already started, because we've had the Iraq Parliament voting 170 to 0 to expel the United States of America from Iraq. That's quite a consequence. In any case, what? In any case, Ayatollah Sistani has already called for a series of meetings with the other Grand Ayatollahs to formulate a consensus on this one issue. That means that on this one issue, the Marja'iyah institutions as a whole have come together under one authority for the first time in their history. That's all the Grand Ayatollahs in Iraq. For the first time in their history. It's not happened previously at any point in the past 15 centuries. Meanwhile, in Iran, they rolled out the red flag of jihad over Imam Mahdi's mosque, and that has never been done before. The red flag of worldwide jihad. Interesting. Information we have suggests that the USA took the decision to assassinate Soleimani prior to Christmas. The decision had been made by the 24th of December. Wow. So I suppose that's inevitable, isn't it? You take your time about putting action in place once you've made a decision to act. But the U.S. is extremely weak on intelligence. Their intelligence services in Iraq are poor, really. You'd expect them to be better. The U.S. was so badly informed that they weren't aware that their airstrike would be taking out al-Mohandis, the militia leader, as well as Qassim Soleimani. The USA simply didn't realize that Mohandis was in the convoy. Now, it maybe not. You'll perhaps weep no tears at the death of either of them, but it is extraordinary that was the case. And the consequences, well, America's rescued Iran, whose reputation in Iraq had fallen through the floor because of the killing of the demonstrators. I mean, rescued Iran. Iran was perceived as being behind the slaughtering of those children demonstrating in the streets of Baghdad and of southern Iraq. Iran, the Iranian hand, whether it was literally directing this action, or it certainly did nothing to stop it, and it had lost all credibility in Iraq. And now that credibility has been restored. Everybody loves a martyr, don't they? No matter how much they disliked Mohandis and how much they disliked Qassim Soleimani. These two were not necessarily the most popular cards in the pack, but they're martyrs now. It's also helped the Iranian government at home. It's a huge boon to the Iranians. Helped the Iranian government at home, where the economy was in dire straits because of American sanctions, and people were complaining. Boy, they were complaining. Yes, it's helped. It's also done other things. I mean, the consequences of this one action are immense. It's cleared the path for my friend, Dark Eyes, Hadi al-Amri, the militia leader, to become dictator in Iraq. We always thought he was on that kind of path, but well, we have done for years, really. He's it seemed, anyway, that way. And why has it cleared the path for him? Well, because of the killing of al-Mohandes. Mohandes is gone. Mohandes was not particularly supportive of Grand Ayatollah Sistani, whereas Hadi al-Amri is in his way. Well, I'm saying Mohandes was, of course, obedient to Grand Ayatollah Sistani, but not in the devoted way that Hadi al-Amri is. And as of yesterday, Hadi al-Amri has been confirmed as overall head of the PMU, the paramilitary units. I mean, he's on a roll really now. Nothing will stop him. At least I don't think so, because of this action. So where do we go? What's going to happen? What else will happen? Well, I mean, why? Just to be clear, why is Hadi al-Amri important? Hadi al-Amri now has, in theory at least, overall command of Qais al-Khazali's Saib al-Haq, of the late Mohandes' Kataib Hezbollah, plus his own very considerable Badr Brigade forces. So he is a major, major figure. And you'll remember Hadi al-Amri just yesterday was banging his fists on the coffin, vowing to get rid of America. And actually, this anger is genuine. These men fought together against Saddam. They go way back. The other footnote, of course, I mean, there are so many footnotes to this thing, and one other footnote is that it clears the way for General Rahim Safavi to quite possibly be the next president of Iran. I mean, the right were looking at two possible candidates from the Revolutionary Guard, either Qassim Soleimani or Rahim Safavi, Rahim being the former head of the Revolutionary Guard. And this has been on the cards for some time. If they're thinking of facing a hardline Trump with a hardliner of their own, but they'd gone on with the more moderate line. It may be that we're going to see General Rahim Safavi come to the fore. No bad thing. He's a pragmatist. He's not. He's not. Well, there's hope with him. But certainly it changes much in Iranian politics, in Iraqi politics, in the whole scene. And it was interesting, wasn't it? You saw the Supreme Leader, or you may have seen on television, the Supreme Leader visit the Soleimani home and tell Soleimani's daughter Zainab, who asked him, "Who will grant us vengeance?" The Grand Ayatollah said, "No need to worry about that," he said as he kissed her head. I mean, payback, yes, as I said, has already started. We just mentioned the Iraq Parliament voted 170-0 in favor of chucking the USA out of Iraq. This of itself is huge, with huge potential consequences if it's carried through. It's staggering. But there will be no closure of the Straits of Hormuz, by the way, in case that's something that bothers you. The Omanis that I speak to are quite confident about this, and information we have absolutely confirms that Iran has already got an agreement with India not to interfere or otherwise impede with its shipping in the Gulf. It has a similar deal with Pakistan, to our certain knowledge. It's also rumored that they have another such deal with China. Don't think Hormuz. The Straits of Hormuz are not going to be closed. I had thought the response was going to be against Israel, which would be disturbing indeed. There are elections in the wind, so neither Israel nor America can afford to look soft. I mean, you could argue that the reason this was done in the first place was because there are elections in the wind in America, and Trump wanted to look like a toughie. I'm not sure it's going to play that way, really. Anyway, if there was a strike against Israel, Netanyahu is up for it. He'd really like a fight. The trouble is that though it would help Netanyahu, it wouldn't be very pleasant for Israel. In 2007, Hezbollah had a stockpile of 2,000 missiles. Now they have a stockpile of 40,000 missiles. Well, you know. It's a time for cool heads to work hard for common sense. But the eye of the storm seems to be shifting slightly. The emphasis is now more strongly on America, even from Nasrallah, who says today now nothing is off limits regarding attacks on the USA. So that would be in a sense, well, is it a silver lining? It's a silver lining in so much as Israel is not the focus, because Israel becoming the focus really lets us out in for cataclysmic actions in the Middle East that could have terrible consequences. Terrible consequences for Iran, but there are those in Iran that don't care, you know, the millennialists who regard these as the latter days, and are happy to go down with the ship. And the idea of a failed state in Iran is worse than a hegemonic Iran, because, we've seen the consequences with Daesh. Can you imagine? Don't even begin to think. If we don't need that. We don't need that. But regardless of which, of course, we have to watch out. Hezbollah is raring to go. It's another consequence, isn't it? I mean, Hezbollah men have had their salaries halved because because Iran's in financial trouble, so it can't subsidize Hezbollah as it had done. Iran's in financial trouble because America has tightened up the sanctions. Yeah. So people, when their backs are against the wall, are more reckless, really. This looks like another American blunder in a series which started with the USA pulling out of Syria and letting the Turks move in. And now, of course, Turkey, as a footnote, has been shifting IS fighters by the dozen and sending them to Libya, baiting the Egyptians to intervene. Trump was given a list of options. He chose the most extreme of several of them. Of course, the Americans and their regional allies had been concerned by a long time by Iran's long-term plan, namely to secure a wide corridor of influence and armed presence between the shores of the Mediterranean in the west and the Khyber Pass in the east. But it's done the reverse, hasn't it? It's strengthened that corridor of influence. What to say? What to say at the end of the day? I mean, just go back. The demonstrators in Iraq against Iran have been undermined phenomenally by this action. the hatred for Iran in Iraq because of the miscalculations of men like Qassim Soleimani and the shooting of the demonstrators, the hatred of Iran in Iraq was reaching new levels. Now America has reversed that mood, has pulled the rug under the feet out from under the feet of the young people that wanted a better future for Iraq, and has re-strengthened Iran's position in Iraq. It's a day of immense disappointment. Let's hope that it doesn't cause that the consequences are not as grave as it seems they might be. And let's hope and pray that cool heads prevail and that we build a better world this 2020. Okay. God bless you.